European leaders are working themselves into a frenzy to prepare an entire continent for war. They held yet another Ukraine summit. They've been doing this furiously since Trump basically spanked Zelensky out of the Oval Office. This is the fourth one. NATO leader Mark Rutte said that there was, no matter what the U.S. does, there is no way that the entire continent of Europe will ever be ready to normalize relations with Russia for decades, he says. Watch.
Well, there will be no normalization of relations with Russia when the war is over. That will not happen. That will take decades because there is a total lack of confidence. The threat is still there. As I said in my speech, even if the war comes to a conclusion, the Russian threat is still there. They are building a war economy. They are spending so much money on defense. They are producing in 3 months an ammunition what the whole of the alliance is producing in a year. We are ramping up our ammunition production. Luckily, we have to. So there's no way that we can normalize relations with Russia after the war is over. You hope in many decades from now and post-Putin that there might be some, but I mean, I'm not optimistic.
So that is some dystopic stuff.
Who exactly voted for this? Again, these are unelected globalists as the head of NATO, the head of the EU Commission. Who exactly voted for the European Union right now to be marshaling us off to war and to telling us that we can't talk to Russia? We can't have normalized relationship with Russia because you want war. Mm-hmm. That's exactly the bottom line here. You want war, therefore we cannot have normalized relations with Russia. Russia doesn't care about you formerly in the Netherlands. Russia doesn't care about you, Germany. Oh, by the way, Russia had a pipeline flowing with natural gas into Germany with relationships that allowed them to get cheap gas until the United States blew it up, until NATO and the United States got together and decided to blow up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So what sort of normalized relationship are we talking about here?
Well, funny you should mention that about him being unelected, because the vote that the people of the Netherlands did get around him as prime minister, remember, he faced a no confidence vote and resigned before they could vote him out. And remember this, he promised that he would quit politics when he left office in the Netherlands. No, that actually was a lie. Instead, he failed up to head NATO to lead us into war. And what he's saying there is, no matter what, we have to build weaponry like crazy, right? Like ants, we have to build weaponry because we never want to have peace with Russia. Now, Ursula von der Leyen, she took to the camera after this fourth Ukrainian meeting to have this whole coalition of the willing plan. And the plan is basically peace through war. Watch.
We had a very good meeting of the coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing has gotten bigger, stronger, and very determined.
Very determined, she says. She also has never been elected by an electorate. She was only installed by the Bundestag. She says that she wants Europe fully ready for war by 2030. So no matter what the heck European people want, doesn't matter. She's saying that these leaders that you didn't elect want it, so you're having it. France is so willing to drag their citizens into war that they have now this prep document for armed conflict. This was a leaked plan, a 20-page booklet that included 63 measures to help the French in case of an armed conflict, as well as natural disasters. I mean, it does have some things like have a flashlight, have some water, but then it also has some information on, quote, how to join local defense units. What the hell? How to join local reservist units and firefighting groups. Again, this hasn't been approved, but it shows you where the government's head is. Go ahead, Clayton.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, is this like a preparedness plan, or is this like inviting every European to be a conscript, basically?
That was my thought. Yes, because they obviously have low enrollment numbers when it comes to their military. All of them do. Yeah. And so they're like, well, okay, but, you know, it's like Beauty and the Beast, like kill the beast level. Like, okay, well, then we're all going to just pick up our our pitchforks and go to war because we can't conscript you. So here's some prep documents. The EU is also launching a survival series of, I don't know exactly what this is. It looks like comedy, but it's real. This woman, her title is the European Commissioner for Equality, Preparedness, and Crisis Management. I'm not sure what kind of title that is. Like, since DEI is dead, now we put equality with crisis prevention. Like, shouldn't we all be equally ready for prepared for a crisis? I don't get it. She says that this new preparedness strategy is rolling out under our motto, #preparedness. And this is how Europe prepares its citizens for crisis, this Wild West piano jangle joke thing. Watch.
It's Ajalabi. Welcome to What's in My Bag Survival Edition. First up, my glasses. Super important if you want to see what is happening or not.
Oh my God.
Next, my document in a waterproof pouch. A must in a rainy Brussels. Now, let's talk about lighting. I have a flashlight. If you don't forget the matches and, of course, the light. Turn. And water, of course, because water is life. And my special
I learned that
friend,
for the first time today. Water
a
is life.
Swiss Army knife. 18 tools in only one knife.
Wait, aren't those banned?
Yeah, right.
And don't forget your medication. You might need it, because you never know. And don't forget something to eat. You might be hungry, very hungry. And of course, some cash.
Okay, so you get the idea of this.
God.
You can watch it on X. I also retweeted it.
I mean,
what the hell?
Yeah, it reminds me of that New York City video from a few years ago where New York City released hey, here's how to prepare in case of a nuclear attack in New York City. Like, don't stand near the window. Monitor social media in case of a nuclear attack. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, laughing about what happens in case Europe descends into war.
I really don't understand it. I don't understand the tone and like, we're just going to get you ready kind of thing. It's okay because we're trying to sell you a war. So while we do that, we'll try to pretend that we want you to be ready with a flashlight and a can of tuna. That's not going to help if they actually do provoke nuclear war with Russia or try and drag you into an armed conflict.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, Rome didn't collapse because of an external invasion. People like to say that it was the Visigoths, it was the external. No, it was marginalizing your own people, not listening to your own people. It was massive militarization and moving towards war. Like, you're watching Europe collapse in the same way that Rome collapsed right now.
And while they do this, here's the kick in the pants, you guys. While they do this, the European Commission is telling people that European approval for the EU is at an all-time high. This is hilarious. They released this survey showing 74% of people surveyed in the Eurobarometer believe that their country benefits from EU membership. Now, they don't release a lot of the parameters of research methods, but they do say that they surveyed 26,000 people. 26,000 people across 27 countries is less than 1,000 people per country. Malta alone has 500,000 people. So that's too few to even represent Malta. So out of 450 million Europeans, they sampled 0.0058, and they say that people love them. That we know for a fact from this barometer, people love Europe. The people of Europe. This is utter propaganda.
Well, I spoke to member of European Parliament, Christine Anderson, just yesterday about the collapse of Europe and why they're so hell-bent on taking us to war. Here's just a little piece of her commentary about Europe going to war. Watch. Why does Europe seem hell-bent on trying to go to war directly with Russia?
That is a question I truly don't have an answer to. It's beyond me. But the war rhetoric that they're using right now, it's mind-boggling. And it just goes to show they're completely unhinged at this point. So they're talking about a coalition of the willing, right? Well, how about we talk about a coalition of the capable? Because that's right. The issue here, So, I mean, hearing Keir Starmer contemplating, putting boots on the ground and planes in the air. What planes is he talking about? And I mean, as far as Germany is concerned, what boots is he even talking about, right? So what Europe has been doing for the past decades is pretty much completely neglect our ability to defend ourselves. Not only have they neglected that completely, anyone, joining the army, whether it was in a setting where it was mandatory, so you had to serve like a specific amount of time, or it was a voluntary joining of the army. I mean, these young men, had been stigmatized as murderers or whatever. They were frowned upon, right? So, and who in their right mind would want to contribute to the capability of defending your country if you're being stigmatized for even thinking about it? And not only that, especially in Germany, I mean, we've been told for decades now we really ought to hate ourselves because of our past, which is absolutely despicable. I'm referring now to the Nazi era in Germany. And we should never forget that. And we should definitely live up to our promise to never again and fight the beginnings. However, if you are teaching young children, you are not allowed to be proud of your country. You not only not that, you have to hate it. Why would anyone want to defend something you were taught to hate?
It's a great question, isn't it? More of that interview. I've had a deep dive interview with Christine Anderson. She's a legend. That will be published here on the channel tomorrow. Europe eating itself right now. The globalists never stop. Now they are pushing airborne vaccines. No needles, no permission, just exposure. The last administration quietly funded grants for aerosol vaccines, a delivery system that could infect us without consent. So watch this video.
So we started pulling grants and we could see that there was funding going to aerosolized COVID vaccines. But that wasn't the most shocking discovery that we made. This is what led us to the discovery that our government's funding research on transmissible vaccines or self-spreading vaccines. They're developing vaccines that would essentially act like a live virus where it could basically replicate itself into new hosts.
Millions were forced into mRNA PSYOP. Cases of myocarditis, blood clots, immune damage have skyrocketed. 8 states are in the process of banning these shots right now. The Trump administration needs to make sure this tyranny hasn't been released on the public. Dr. Peter McCullough and the Wellness Company created the ultimate spike detox with 4 times the nattokinase, plus bromelain and curcumin to help break down spike proteins and support your body's natural recovery. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting cardiologist who risked it all. Head over to twc.health/redacted. Use the code redacted to get 10% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/redacted. Use the code redacted for 10% off. Again, get back to that pre-COVID feeling.
All right, well, climate change is going to fade from view like the overpopulation did. That was the headline from journalist Michael Schellenberger and political scientist Roger Pielke. So say goodbye to climate change. It's out of style, like the ozone layer narrative, right? The problem is that they're going to pretend that they never sold us alarmism, and I'm not going to let them, because I swallowed that crap for a while until I read books, until I decided that no more mainstream media was going to feed me this crap. Now, 2 days ago, I typed climate change into Google because I was searching for images for the newsletter. And this is what it returned to me: climate variability. And I was floored because Google is pretending that it always viewed climate change as a naturally occurring phenomenon, which it is. But that's a lie. Google promoted the climate crisis. They partnered with the United Nations to pervert search results with alarmist information. And the United Nations Global Communication Director admitted this and explained it this way, this horrific, dystopic way, in 2022. Watch.
We partnered with Google, for example. If you Google climate change, you will, at the top of your search, you will get all kinds of UN resources. We started this partnership when we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top. So we're becoming much more proactive. We own the science, and we think that the world, should know it, and the platforms themselves also do. But again, it's a huge challenge that I think all sectors of society need to be very active in.
We own the science, yeah.
Yeah, that pissed me off in 2022 and even more so in 2025. Again, they were manipulating Google's search results. In 2019, media outlets unilaterally started to use language like this. Remember when The Guardian updated its style guide to recommend terms such as climate crisis instead of climate change, or global heating instead of global warming to scare people? They had no science to do that. They just said, based on how we feel about the environment, we're going to do this so people take it more seriously. And it scared people, particularly children and young people. Now they are accepting the climate variability truth, which is the Earth's atmosphere goes through natural cycles of warming and cooling. And no one has ever been able to prove definitively that there is human responsibility for it. And in fact, just this month, a new paper in the journal Science of Climate Change disproved the human-led global warming theory. It debunked it. The paper used AI models to reveal that human CO2 emissions, constituting a mere 4% of the annual carbon cycle, are dwarfed by natural fluxes. So what we're responsible for is 4%. That's what they made us all crazy for, 4%. And they said that it's our fault as humans. The paper asserts that the IPCC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, uses faulty models to predict climate outcomes and humans' roles in them. That's something we've been saying for a long time. The IPCC models are flawed and faulty and not reliable, and scientists do not agree on that. Now, I put this paper into Grok yesterday, and Grok said, ooh, this paper makes bold claims. And I pushed back and I said, many scientists have pointed this out. One of them being veteran climate scientist Judith Curry, who wrote this book. And Grok said, oh, yeah, it's actually not that bold to say that. Scientists have been saying this for a long time. So Grok and I worked it out. We had a little argument about what is bold. It's actually not bold to say that the IPCC models are unreliable, that humans have not definitively caused climate scientists. And Grok apologized. So we're all good now. Who has not apologized is the media. The sad part about this narrative shift is how many people were made anxious and sad. They called it climate anxiety. The young people have it across the board. You had to read books and turn away from mainstream media to know the truth. We should never forgive them, and I don't. So watch for this narrative shift and give them all a collective middle finger is what I say. But you let me know what you think.